The heavy oak door creaked open. Evelyn Carter stepped into the Tower of London. Midnight. The air hung heavy with the weight of centuries. The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating. A shiver ran down her spine. This was no ordinary assignment.
The tower's imposing walls seemed to close in, whispering tales of tragedy and despair.
Evelyn, an investigative journalist known for her skepticism, felt a tremor of unease. She clutched her camera bag, her only companion in this sea of shadows. The silence was broken only by the distant chime of Big Ben. Each clang resonated through her, a stark reminder of the passage of time and the secrets these ancient stones held. She was here to uncover the truth behind the recent reports of ghostly apparitions. Evelyn, ever the pragmatist, was determined to find a rational explanation. Professor Thomas Becket, a renowned historian specializing in the tower's macabre past, met Evelyn by the Traitor's Gate. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, the kind that only centuries of dark history could conjure. A palpable anxiety etched lines on his usually jovial face. His eyes darted around as if expecting the shadows themselves to come alive.
You must be careful, Miss Carter. The tower is not just a monument, it is a living, breathing entity.
He warned, his voice a hushed murmur, barely louder than the rustling leaves around them. His tone carried the weight of countless untold stories. Beckett's years of research within the tower's walls had instilled in him a deep respect for its spectral residents. He had delved into the annals of history, uncovering secrets that many would prefer remain buried. He had spent countless hours poring over ancient texts, chronicling the lives and deaths of those who had met their end within these very walls. Each page turned was a step deeper into the tower's dark past. He knew the stories, the whispers of restless souls seeking solace, or perhaps vengeance. The tower was a repository of sorrow and anger, emotions that had festered over centuries.
These are not mere ghost stories, my dear. They are echoes of the past, reverberating through time. The tower holds onto its memories, and some of them are unhappy, angry. They linger, waiting for someone to listen, or perhaps to avenge them.
His words hung in the air, a chilling premonition. The gravity of his warning was not lost on Evelyn, even if she tried to mask her unease. Evelyn, though outwardly dismissive of Beckett's warnings, couldn't help but feel a prickle of apprehension. The professor's earnestness was hard to ignore. The professor's genuine concern was unsettling. His knowledge of the tower's history was unparalleled, and his fears were not easily dismissed. Was she truly prepared for what awaited her in the darkness of the White Tower? The question lingered in her mind, a shadow of doubt that refused to dissipate. The tower's secrets were many, and its walls had witnessed countless tragedies. Evelyn knew that stepping into its depths meant confronting not just the past, but the very essence of human fear and suffering. The White Tower loomed ahead, its ancient stones whispering tales of imprisonment, torture and execution. Each step Evelyn took felt heavier, as if the very ground beneath her was laden with the weight of history. Yet, despite the fear gnawing at her, Evelyn felt a surge of determination. She was here to uncover the truth, to peel back the layers of time and reveal the stories that had been shrouded in darkness for too long. With a deep breath, she reached for the old, weathered key that Becket had given her. It was time to unlock the past, to face whatever lay hidden within the tower's ancient walls. The door creaked open, revealing a dark, foreboding interior. As she stepped inside, the air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to close in around her. Evelyn knew that this was just the beginning of her journey into the heart of the tower's mysteries. With each step, she felt the weight of history pressing down on her, the voices of the past whispering in her ears. The Tower of London was not just a relic of history, it was a living testament to the human experience, a place where the past and present intertwined in a dance of shadows and light. Evelyn's resolve hardened. She would uncover the truth no matter the cost. The tower's secrets would not remain hidden forever. And as she ventured deeper into its depths, she knew that she was not just exploring a historical monument, but confronting the very essence of human fear and suffering. For centuries, Beckett began, his voice echoing against the stone walls. "The tower has been a place of both grandeur and suffering. Kings have walked these grounds, and so have their victims."
Tales of Anne Boleyn still mourning her lost crown, her spectral form said to appear each Christmas at the chapel where she took her last communion. The young princes, their innocent laughter echoing through the corridors, forever trapped within these walls.
Each story sent a fresh wave of chills down Evelyn's spine. She had always dismissed such tales as folklore, the product of overactive imaginations. But here, surrounded by the palpable weight of history, doubt crept in. Could these stories be more than just legends? Evelyn shook her head, dispelling the growing unease. She was a journalist, a woman of logic and reason. She would rely on evidence, not folklore, to uncover the truth behind the tower's haunted reputation. Section 4. A Night in the White Tower. Evelyn's vigil begins. Evelyn stepped inside the White Tower, its cold stone walls radiating an almost oppressive energy. The air was thick with history, each stone whispering tales of the past. She could almost hear the echoes of footsteps from centuries ago, the murmurs of long-forgotten conversations. Moonlight spilled through the narrow windows, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and coil like living things. The interplay of light and shadow created an eerie, almost otherworldly atmosphere, making the ancient tower feel alive with unseen presences.
I set up my equipment, cameras, audio recorders, and electromagnetic sensors, hoping to capture something, anything, that could explain the strange occurrences. Each piece of equipment was meticulously placed, ensuring that no corner of the room was left unmonitored. The anticipation was palpable, a mix of excitement and fear.
The air grew colder, biting at her skin despite the summer night. It was an unnatural chill, one that seemed to seep into her very bones. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to ward off the cold, but it was relentless. She could almost feel the weight of countless eyes upon her, unseen observers lurking in the shadows. The silence was unnerving, a heavy, oppressive quiet that seemed to amplify every small sound. It was as if the tower itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. No wind howled through the ancient battlements tonight, only a deathly stillness that pressed in on her chest, stealing her breath. The oppressive stillness was suffocating, making her feel as though she was being slowly crushed by the weight of the tower's history.
I fought the urge to look over my shoulder, to acknowledge the growing sense of dread that clung to me like a shroud. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to leave this place, but I knew I had to stay. I had to see this through, no matter how terrifying it became. I began my vigil, my senses on high alert. Every sound, every flicker of movement caught my attention. I was hyper-aware of my surroundings, my heart pounding in my chest as I waited for something, anything to happen. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of fabric from the ancient tapestries that adorned the walls, sent my heart racing. The sounds seemed to echo in the silence, each one a reminder of the unseen forces that might be lurking just out of sight. The tension was almost unbearable, a constant gnawing fear that something was about to reveal itself.
Section 5. The Spectre of the White Tower, a chilling encounter. Hours crawled by, each minute feeling like an eternity. The ancient walls of the tower seemed to close in, the silence only broken by the occasional creak of the old wood and the distant hoot of an owl. Evelyn's initial skepticism began to waver as the night wore on. She had come here with a firm belief that the stories were just that, stories. But as the minutes turned into hours, her confidence started to erode. The oppressive atmosphere, the bone-chilling cold that seemed to emanate from the very stones themselves, it all conspired to chip away at her resolve. The air was thick with an unexplainable heaviness, making it hard to breathe.
Then it happened. A sudden, almost imperceptible shift in the air, a flicker of movement at the edge of my vision. It was so quick, so subtle, that I almost dismissed it as a trick of the light. A figure, tall and slender, draped in what appeared to be a flowing white gown, materialized from the shadows. It moved with an eerie grace, almost as if it were gliding rather than walking. It hovered near the far wall, its form indistinct, a shimmering apparition that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The figure's edges blurred and shifted, making it hard to focus on any one part of it.
Evelyn froze, her breath catching in her throat. She wanted to move, to run, but her body refused to obey. Her rational mind screamed at her that it was a trick of the light, a figment of her sleep-deprived imagination. She had read about such phenomena, how the mind could play tricks in the dark. But deep down, a primal fear took hold. This was not something her mind could easily explain away. This was something else, something not of this world. The very air seemed to hum with an otherworldly energy, making the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end.
The figure turned, and for a fleeting moment their eyes met. Evelyn's blood ran cold. It was as if time itself had stopped. The spectre's eyes were hollow, bottomless pits of darkness that seemed to stare straight through her, chilling her to the core. Those eyes held a depth of sorrow and pain that words could not describe, a haunting reminder of a life long lost. Evelyn took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest. The figure remained still, its gaze never wavering. She felt an overwhelming urge to flee, but her legs felt like lead. Summoning every ounce of courage, she turned to run. As she did, the figure began to fade, its form dissolving into the shadows from whence it came. Evelyn ran down the dark hallway, her footsteps echoing off the stone walls. She didn't stop until she was outside, gasping for breath in the cool night air. She looked back at the historical building, its silhouette bathed in the pale light of the moon. The encounter had shaken her to her core, leaving her with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain, she would never forget the spectre of the White Tower. It was a chilling encounter that would haunt her for the rest of her days.